Good morning. Welcome, everybody. If I could have your attention and grab a seat. We have a power-packed morning for you. We're really looking forward for your input and community discussion, so please stay throughout the entire program if you're able. We invite you to check in and tweet throughout our session using the hashtag #TogetherWeCanDoBetter. Now it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Bill Pink, GRCC President, to officially welcome us. Dr. Pink.
Thank you, Eve. Good morning. Boy, that was I'm impressed with good mornings at 8 a.m. in the morning that are so robust. Thank you for that. Welcome very much. Welcome to Grand Rapids Community College. Welcome to this occasion. I always like to mention the fact that when people are here on our campus that you are welcome to the oldest community college in the state of Michigan and to one of the oldest community colleges in the country. And certainly with what this community college represents for Grand Rapids and for West Michigan, it is indeed a pleasure not only to be president, but more of a pleasure to welcome you to our campus this morning. Here sitting in the Applied Technology Center, the home of the Sekia Institute for Culinary Education, some of the individuals you see walking around serving you this morning being some of our students from the Sekia Institute. They do great work here. I encourage you at any time to come back on campus for lunch or dinner to our Heritage Restaurant that is right around the corner from this facility, just outside the door and down the hallway, to come and have lunch or dinner there at the Heritage and spend time talking to. The food is great, but what I love to do when I'm at the Heritage is also to talk to our students. Ask them what their plans are, and some of the stories you hear from our students are always incredible, not just in what they plan to do, but also in what they have done in persevering to get to this point. And so I encourage you to come back and not only enjoy a meal, but to also come back and just spend time dialogue with our students, because that's what we're actually here for today, is to talk about students. And for the students that you and I are talking about this morning, at the age that we're talking about, how important it is in early childhood and early learning. It is important for even what you see. That's why I ask you to talk to our students today, because in what you see in early childhood education can have such a grave impact on students that we have here at our community college even today. How important it is to do all we can for our children at the young age so that the developmental side is what is needed for them to progress in their education life and in their work and career life. And so for efforts like this, and one thing I love about GRCC is our commitment and our stance in this community when it comes to early childhood and early learning. Here recently with the opening the doors just about a year ago of the Phyllis Fratsky Early Childhood Learning Center right here on campus. That beautiful facility. If you have not had a chance to walk through that facility, I encourage you to do so. That is a facility that in its young infancy has already won a national award as far as the architecture is concerned, and it being a LEED facility as well, already seeing and realizing those type of honors. But aside from the facility itself and how beautiful it is, the children who are there, and not only the children who are there as early learners, but also our students who are there, who are learning in terms of what it means to be an early childhood educator and learning what it means to be an early learning caretaker. I encourage you to look and to ask for a tour of that facility. Jane Ann Benson is our director over there and does a fabulous job. And any of you who are involved in early learning in Grand Rapids probably know Jane Ann. I encourage you to go over and spend some time with Jane Ann. Let her take you through the facility, but also ask her about what the community impact is there, because that facility is a result of community work. When you talk about the funders of that facility, when you talk about the programs that are vetted out of that facility that are truly partnered with the community of Grand Rapids, just ask her about it. Ask her about the depth, and ask her about what it means and the importance it means for this community when it comes to taking care of our children. Or as my colleague in Grand Rapids Public Schools, Teresa Weatherall-Neal, says, our babies. When it comes to taking care of them, it is of vital importance. And that is a community effort, friends. It is not just the effort that is resulted of a community college or a four-year school and what we do. That's part of it. But we can't do our work well without communication and without community. And that's what this is talking about this morning as well. The importance of community when it comes to taking care of our children, when it comes to taking care of our babies. And so as we get into this morning, I encourage you in your thoughts, in your conversations, to think about our children and think about how community impact and what that means for not only our children in today's society as they prepare, but also what that means for us tomorrow. Because the decisions that you and I make today, we may not actually be able to see the full fruits of those decisions, but we lay that foundation for our children. So tomorrow is a better day for them. And it may be a day that you and I not see, but it is still incumbent upon us to make those decisions and to do the work today. I want to introduce to you our speaker this morning, one of our well-decorated speakers. And I want to, usually I get a bio and I'll go through it and I'll do a little marking here and there to highlight career. But I got to tell you, friends, with what Kate Pugh Wolters has done in her career, I'm just going to tell you, I got to read most of this, just about all the thing to you, because it's that important to me. And I think it's that impactful in terms of what this woman means to our community and actually has meant to our country. Kate Pugh Wolters is a member of the board of directors of Steelcase Incorporated. She's also chair of the Steelcase Foundation. She was appointed by the board of directors of Steelcase in September of 2001. She was appointed chair of the Steelcase Foundation upon leaving her post as executive director of the foundation in October of '96. She now also serves as president of the Kate and Richard Wolters Foundation. And founded in 1997 by Kate and her late husband, Richard, this private foundation makes grants to nonprofit organizations with an emphasis in the arts, education, human services, and people with disabilities. She serves as a board member for a number of organizations, including the Grand Rapids Symphony, the DisArt and Michigan Protection and Advocacy Service. She serves as a member of the board of the Mary and Robert Pugh Public Education Fund, which is a fund at a foundation established by her parents that addresses public education in Palm Beach County, Florida. She joined the Steelcase Foundation in 1986 as an executive director after serving as director of the Grand Rapids Center for Independent Living for 2 years. From 1982 to 1984, she was a staff social worker in the Steelcase Incorporated Counseling and Referral Center. One thing that I thought was really interesting to note is that she served as co-chair for First Steps Children's Commission and was appointed by Governor Granholm to an 8-year term as a member of the board of Grand Valley State University, and in 2004 was reappointed by Governor Snyder. And then also, I think of great note, she was appointed by President Bill Clinton to serve on the National Council on Disability in 1984 and was reconfirmed by the U.S. Senate in '96, where she served until 2008. For 8 of her 9 years on that council, she served as vice chair. We're talking about someone who is not only recognized in terms of what we know in West Michigan, but recognized nationally. She received her BA from Aquinas and also a master's degree in social work from Michigan State University. Ladies and gentlemen, we're honored to have on our campus today, and I ask you to welcome as our speaker this morning, Kate Pugh Wolters.
Thanks, Dr. Pink. And thank you to GRCC for hosting this morning's event. What a great group of people who care about kids in this room. I'm so pleased that you're here. As you heard, I'm Kate Wolters, and I'm the co-chair of the First Steps Kent Board of Commissioners, together with my fellow co-chair, Lou Chamberlain. We also have a variety of our commissioners in the room today. Together with many community partners, First Steps planned and coordinated this community event. In particular, I'd like to recognize our staff Anne-Marie Valdez, who is our president and CEO, and Kate Parr, who has worked very, very hard together with her staff to make today possible. If the First Step staff could stand up, please. We're here today because we know that investing in our young children creates better lives for children and families. Investments in young children and families create better schools and real financial benefits for our community. This knowledge has inspired us to launch the first early childhood community plan in 2004 and subsequently in 2008 with representatives from just about every sector in the community. As a group, we relied on the best research about early childhood development to create goals in 4 areas: supports for parents, access to comprehensive health services, high quality early childhood education, and a system of support. All families with infants and toddlers need access to family support services, comprehensive health, high quality and affordable learning. Programs and services that address these areas are critical. However, they're only as strong as the infrastructure that supports them. To be effective, programs must be organized within cohesive systems that coordinate and align a broad array of services. To support all children in Kent County, we must provide coordinated and well-funded system of quality, high quality prenatal to age 5 services that foster success in school and in life. We are also committed to increasing parent voices throughout the early childhood system. Today, we will show you how well our community is doing in reaching these goals and engage in a discussion about what's next. The report that we're releasing today analyzes the gaps and the opportunities in early childhood services and funding in Kent County and is a measure of our real progress. It's an important tool that will help us to plan our next steps and set out our new priorities. While our community has made significant progress in making sure that Kent County children are ready for school and life, many children and families don't have access to vital early childhood services. We want you to come away from our gathering today and hope, because our goals are within reach, that you can do so with hope. The same determination and cooperation that inspired us over 15 years ago, hard to believe, can help us fully reach our goals. We're looking forward to this morning's conversation and dialogue. We're doing great things in West Michigan, and now we have an opportunity to ensure that all Kent County children and their families have access to early childhood supports so we can continue to build on the West Michigan success story. We need to come together as a community to ensure adequate funding and support for quality early childhood programs. Together, we can make sure that every child is ready for school and life when they arrive for the first day of kindergarten. Thank you, and work hard today.
Thank you, Kate, for those inspiring words to get us started today. So, ladies and gentlemen, as Kate mentioned, this event is about recognizing the community's role in ensuring every young child in Kent County enters kindergarten healthy and ready to succeed in school and life. Together we can do better. We will be asking for your feedback and perspective in multiple ways throughout this event, and we'll begin again with some polling. So let's take a moment to learn about who is here today. Please, let's get back to your phones and hop back onto the Poll Everywhere app that we all just did earlier, and the questions will pop up. First question as it comes up is, what best represents the perspective you are coming from for today's conversation? So as you can see there, the options. Go ahead and pick. Who are you out there? And we can see it's, okay. And looks like early childhood professionals are in the lead there. It's like a horse race, isn't it? And then a neck and neck, and then we have business leaders coming up. All right. It's kind of there. We can kind of see, oh, a nice, a wide variety there. Okay. So let's try our second question. Please select which best describes your knowledge and understanding of early childhood in Kent County. Let's take a look at the poll. Oh boy, I think I fit that last one. That's interesting. All right, for those who say they could write a book about it, I want to see that. All right. A kid's book, right? And it's going. Well, still, we do have a lot of knowledge in the room. That's great. I think that 1% is me. This is about kids under 5, right? All right. And let's try our third question here. Have you ever accessed early childhood support services? Okay. Oh, wow. Can we pick more than one? No, huh? It has multiple services, though. Okay. I'm going to pick that one. There it goes. It seems like at one point in our lives we've all accessed something. Multiple services. All right. Interesting, interesting. I love to see how that continues to move. All right, excellent. So one of our primary goals today, in today's event, is to better understand the perspective of parents who have accessed early childhood support services in our community. So I think now's a good time to let's hear from some parents who are in the room today. Please welcome Anthony Queen, Jessica Turk, and Destiny Willis, who are here to share their experience with early childhood.
Good morning. Good morning. First of all, I just wanted to thank Anne-Marie for having us up here as parent reps, Paula Brown from Great Start Collaborative, and Candace, wherever she might be, from Family Futures, for allowing us to be parent reps. Oh, way in the back, okay. I am thankful that I had the opportunity to utilize home visiting program, Strong Fathers, Parents as Teachers, and Spectrum Maternal Infant Health Program. These programs have made life easier for parents and their children. These programs have given me the skills, perseverance, and experience to raise my son, Caden. I lost my son's mother 30 days after Caden was born. From this moment on, I truly became a single father. The night she passed away, I looked at my son and said, what am I going to do? I had no family in the area. This was my first child, and I had just suffered a loss. I was not equipped to face these barriers that had been presented at the time in my life where I thought everything was just starting to fall in place. I had no knowledge of what medical and psychological care my son may need. As an African-American man, going to the doctor is something we only do if our mothers, girlfriends, or wives tell us to go. I appreciate the nurse that took the time out to come up to me and tell me about the home visiting program. The nurse whom approached me stated, and I quote, "I had an inviting face. She felt comfortable walking up to a stranger." Little did I know that this would be a life-changing moment for me. As I reflect on the resources that home visiting provided me with, I cannot begin to tell how helpful it was to know which dentist to send my child to or what WIC services I qualified for, and especially the benefits of enrolling him in the Head Start program at the proper time. It truly does take a village to raise a child, and home visiting led me to Strong Fathers program. Tony Jalafi, I don't know if he's here, was not only my worker, but a mentor and a friend. This man was inspirational. He let me know I was not alone. I could tell Tony my frustration, and he always had a solution. For those who know me, I have an A-type personality, which I was not used to feeling frustrated and wore out on a daily basis. Strong Fathers let me know that these feelings were natural and that it was okay. There will be some bad days, but there will also be better days. Since I have become a parent representative, it is important to me that those who have walked in my shoes and others who are wearing similar shoes are aware of the community resources and services that were offered to me. The research from the state of Michigan, Kids Count, and the devastating results of the Annie E. Casey Foundation 2017 Race for the Result policy report states, African-American fourth graders in the state of Michigan, the reading proficiency is the lowest in the country, and the math proficiency rate for eighth grade African-American kids are tied with Alabama being the lowest in the country. These results show we, as a community, have a long way to go. I am glad that home visiting community has taken the task of inclusion of men seriously. There was a time not long ago when literature and philosophy were all geared towards women. I am happy to say that that mentality is changing. And anybody who knows me knows that's one of the things I always bring up. So I'm glad that's changing. Lastly, I was asked to speak of my accomplishments. Since home visiting became a part of my life, there have been quite a few. After all, I'm a single black man taking on the responsibility of raising a 5-year-old, and that stands out in today's society. After careful consideration and reflection, the biggest accomplishment that home visiting provided me with is helping me bridge the gap between being responsible and loving my son. Thanks.
There's my kids. I have a pretty unique family, if you can tell from my family photo. My husband and I were teen parents. I was 16 when we found out we were going to start a family. Now, almost 15 years later, here I am, sitting here in front of you, a proud mother of 6. We have 3 biological children, 2 girls, ages 12 and 14, and 1 little boy, 3. And then we also have 3 adopted boys who are 5, 7, and 13. And they are all full biological brothers. Our boys are multiracial, so that brings up its own obstacles for our family. But we accept the challenge. When we had our girls, we had no idea about early child education and what was available. It wasn't until we started doing foster care almost 5 years ago that we were introduced to these services. Now, when you take a child into your home, you also agree to provide whatever services that they recommend to you. That was an eye-opener for me. We have utilized many services for all of our kids. Our youngest, being 10 weeks premature and spending 2 months in the NICU, has received multiple services and therapies, along with our 5-year-old who is autistic and our 7-year-old who is suffering from PTSD. And then our 4 oldest also have received a wide range of services, ranging from behavioral delays to learning disabilities. But if I sit up here and talk about all of my kids, we'd be here all day. So the one I'm gonna focus on today is my 5-year-old Steven. We started with a home visitor for him when he was 2 years old, and that quickly turned into occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech therapy. Now, coming from foster care, we knew he was going to have a lot of challenges, but we didn't realize the extent of them. He weighed just 17 pounds, and was severely malnourished. He was mute, and he self-harmed when he got upset. When our home visitor from early on started coming to the house, she really started to point out some of the issues that weren't so obvious to us. At that time, she quickly referred him to early Head Start for more extensive services, and his speech therapist there was amazing. She noticed a pattern in Steve's behaviors and thought that it would be nice to put him in a playgroup to see how he interacted with other kids, something he had never done before. From there, she recommended having him tested for autism because of some of his behaviors and some of his delays that he wasn't overcoming. Because of our home visitor referring us for more services and because of our speech therapist who cared so deeply, our son was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder at just 3 years old. From there, we were able to utilize even more services to better address his socialization, aggression, stuttering, and speech issues. From this, he was placed in a 3-year-old Head Start where he was in a classroom that specialized in speech and articulation issues. And then he also qualified for applied behavioral analysis therapy, so ABA therapy, which Head Start was so kind enough to bus him to every day after school. And I'll take all the help I can get with 6 kids. And he did so well there that the next year he was able to move on to a Great Start Readiness Program classroom, where he continued to get extreme speech and socialization help. They went out of their way to accommodate him and make sure that he was ready. He succeeded so well in all of these programs that today he is in a traditional kindergarten classroom with minimal services. The only thing he receives now is speech twice a week.
All right.
I know, it's amazing. I cannot imagine where my Stephen would be without these programs in place. My youngest 3 have all benefited from similar services, and they are all excelling beyond what I thought was possible. I wish I would have known about these programs when my older 3 kids were younger. Maybe then they wouldn't be facing some of the academic struggles that they are having today. Being a large family can be hard. Being a diverse, blended family, we face discrimination and whispers. Being a special needs family can be chaotic and unexpected. I am so grateful that I found this early childhood education family. They all care so much about the children and families that they serve. My kids are sick less now than they were before, except for this week, and more academically prepared than they were 4 years ago. The friends and connections my family has made will impact their futures for the better, and I am so thankful for that. My kids have overcome so many hurdles in their lives already, and I'm so glad that school won't be one of them. We can't prepare them for everything, but we can prepare them for success, and success starts early.
Good morning. Please forgive me. When I have a microphone, I have a strong urge to just sing karaoke, so I'm going to try to just
Go ahead,
say
go
my
ahead.
words and not sing my words. My name is Destiny Willis. I am the proud mother of 3 amazing little girls, Macy, Avery, and Nia. I had the opportunity to have my twin daughters while I was working for the state of Michigan as a DHS eligibility specialist. The day I was set to return to work was the day that our office closed its doors. So I returned from maternity leave to basically a pink slip saying, "You are laid off." So in a time where I felt financially I had lost everything, through the Baby Scholars Program and a grant that the Other Way Ministries received to open up a center for children the ages of 0 to 3, I gained something that was so priceless, which was an education for my children who at the time were 7-month-old and Macy was 1.5. I can't put a price tag on sending 2 twins that were born 8 weeks premature to school and not worry about developmental delays because they were able to get into a program that was patient with them, teachers that loved them, teachers that were teachers that were devoted to them understanding and hitting the pivotal marks that they needed to be. There is a difference between receiving assistance and having an assistance in raising your children, and the early learning program, the Other Way Ministries, Baby Scholars, ELNC, they have all assisted me in being the best mother that I could be and providing the best education that my children can receive. They keep me in the loop of all the resources. And even though they do a lot, please note, I have to, as a parent, first always make the initiative to look for the resources, to strive to know the next steps. And one thing I've learned through this process, as my co-parents here have said, it all starts early on. We can't wait until they're 5 and say, why aren't they reading? Why doesn't the numbers add up? Well, you can't watch TV from 1 to 4 and think that the numbers are going to add up. We shouldn't, as parents, be faced with financial burdens. You make too much, your child cannot attend pre-K or kindergarten this year because financially you're over what we would deem the income limits to be. I am so grateful that I'm here this morning with you guys. And even though my children, Macy, Avery, and Nia, they are benefiting from these programs, it's very sad to say that there are children that are home right now that are not benefiting from these programs. So hopefully we can put our minds together and make sure that they do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anthony, Jessica, and Destiny. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. We're glad you can be here today, that early childhood services in Kent County made an impact in your family's life. The early childhood community has served countless families like Anthony, Jessica's, and Destiny's. While we've made significant progress, gaps still remain in critical areas of parent education and family support, health, and early learning. I'm eager to introduce you to the following video with results of the recently completed analysis of gap in early childhood services and funding in Kent County.
More than a decade ago, our community set a vision that every young child in Kent County will enter kindergarten healthy and ready to succeed in school and life.
It was about 15 years ago when the Kent County Commission first got engaged in early childhood in collaboration with the local foundations. And it was transformative leadership that the county often provides. And we've gotten a lot done since then, but there's so much more to do.
Science tells us that babies' brains develop more in the first 3 years than during any other time in life. A baby's earliest experiences and relationships shape how the brain develops.
Learning does not start when a kid walks through our door. That learning takes place the moment that child is born and has the opportunity to interact with their world, with parents, with other kids, and just be exposed to that language, to those skills, and just everything from just the moment that they are born.
When you know better, you can do better, and we know more now about how the brain works. So now that we know that, now that we have that data, we know that we need to shift our resources towards where we're going to get the best return, and that is simply starting earlier.
Economists know that investing in early childhood pays off not only for children, but for the entire community, with stronger families, lower special education costs, higher graduation rates, less crime, and a better trained workforce.
Talent is the driver of economic development today. And when we talk about talent, a lot of times people think about the middle schooler or the high schooler or the young people in college or junior or community college. But the talent pipeline starts way, way, way down the road when children are small. And if they are not ready to go to school, then we will have rework to do by the time they get to be 15, 16, 17, and 18-year-olds. And we are experiencing this today.
Early childhood has everything to do with the workforce. And so it's really very important for our communities to understand that making sure our children start with a good start in their formal education in order to get through school, in order to get jobs that are so needed in our communities, we need to do a better job.
You can see just such a huge difference in the kids that have been exposed to that learning from an early point versus the kids who really haven't been exposed to much of anything. There's a huge gap in our classrooms of kids with those skills.
We know what works. Prenatal support so children are born healthy. parenting education, so families are supported and parents' knowledge and skills increase. Health services, so children have the care they need. Access to quality childcare, so children are in a nurturing environment. And preschool, so they are on track for kindergarten. We've made progress, but a recent analysis of services and funding in Kent County shows a significant gap remains. We know the gap because we know about kids in Kent County. 8,900 babies are born every year. There are 44,500 children under age 5. 46% of them are economically disadvantaged.
I didn't realize until Sue got involved that how big a gap there was for so many students. That was just confirmed and followed up with the work with Talent 2025, that so many kids were coming to school and not prepared to read, and they get behind and aren't able to catch up.
While all 4-year-olds in Kent County do have access to quality preschool, this is not the case for 3-year-olds. In fact, the analysis found only 14% of economically disadvantaged 3-year-olds get this chance. That's more than 3,100 children each year missing out. And there are 5,000 families that need home-based parenting education. Currently, the community can serve less than half, only 47% of those who need it.
Personally, I have young children, and for me, I had a son. He is nonverbal, and so we had some challenges. We have to meet people where they are, and we have to be able to speak our kids' language, and that's a different language than, 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Only about a quarter of children are getting support to improve their access to comprehensive health care. Thousands of families cannot afford quality childcare, which costs an average of $8,000 a year and can be the biggest annual expense for a family.
There were bigger and more expensive gaps than I ever imagined. And I think Kent County needs to invest in early childhood. And when you inform West Michigan, Kent County does rally for what's right.
When I think about Kent County, I think about all the people that have been involved. I see a lot of smart people, and so I put my money on a lot of smart folks working hard to do the right thing, knowing that and basing it on the research that when we start working with the youngest of children at the very early stages, that you will get better results and it will cost less.
And when you talk about the gaps are, they're significant. But the way you get across the gap is to leap. And that's what we're doing. As a community, we're coming together, we're joining arms, and we're going to leap. And I think this time we're going to get it done.
I'm not sure that everybody understands how critical those first 5 years of a child's life really are. I'm glad that this community has put words into action over the past 15 years. But it's one thing to say we support families and children, but then what are you going to do about it?
We need to close the gap so every child in Kent County will enter kindergarten healthy and ready to succeed in school and life. Let's work together in creating a brighter future for Kent County kids.
Wow. What a compelling video. And now to take a deeper dive into the gap analysis results and Kent County's community plan for early childhood, we'd like to welcome now to take the stage our panelists for today, Anissa Eddy, Christina Donaldson, and Lou Chamberlain. So come on up, folks. Anissa Eddy is a dedicated advocate for children and families. She is passionate about enhancing community well-being and prioritizing equity and inclusion in her work. Anissa serves as the Associate Director of K-Connect, a network aiming to ensure all children in Kent County have a clear path to economic prosperity through quality education, family, and community supports. Anissa is also the co-founder of the Malamai Juice Bar in the downtown market. Anissa is originally from the Grand Rapids area and lives on the southeast side with her husband, Jermail. Yes, and there are 3 little boys. I'll get it right. Christina Donaldson is a proud parent representative on the First Steps Kent Commission and Great Start Collaborative, who has a rich background as an effective parent leader, family advocate, and change agent. Currently, as a government-appointed representative for the Michigan Interagency Coordinating Council and co-chair of our local council in Kent, she advocates for children with disabilities. Christina facilitates training for the Parents Leadership in State Government Initiative. Lou Chamberlain holds the position of Managing Partner and Chief Executive Officer for Whitecaps Baseball. A native of Grand Rapids, Lou remains an active participant in the West Michigan community and has served on the boards of numerous community organizations. Lou is co-chair of the First Steps Commission, was appointed by Governor Granholm to serve on the executive board of the Early Childhood Investment Corporation, and sits on the Children's Leadership Council of Michigan, a statewide group of business leaders advocating for early childhood investment. Welcome. Wow. That's a nice job here. We are going to start a discussion with some questions that we want to get started with, but if you look at your tables, there are no cards, and at any point in time, if you hear something, if you want to address something while you're listening, please write the questions down and, hold them up. We have people that will come around and bring those up to me, so we'll try to get to as many of those as possible during the Q&A period, but let's get started. First of all, I'll start with Lou and get through the rest of the panel here. How do we address the inequities in early childhood system?
Well, is this working? Hang on.
There you go. You just turn it on.
I turned it on. Is it on?
Let's switch, and we'll get this one going. It's got a green light. Hello, hello, hello. No.
Now, oh.
There you go.
Gracious. The inequities in the early childhood system. Well, I think it goes without saying that we need to focus our efforts where the need is the greatest. That goes without saying. But I think all parents and children at some point in that perilous journey from birth to age 5 are going to need some help and support along the way. I know that when my children were that age, I certainly didn't know everything I needed to know. And help and support is something that certainly I was able to take advantage of. And I think that's why we need to devise a system of early childhood support and service that is available to everyone. But in saying that, I think we also have to recognize that there are a number of people in our community who face serious barriers in accessing our early childhood services. The barriers can be economic, they're economic disadvantage, they can be cultural, there can be language barriers, they can be structural, might be issues of transportation. There are a lot of barriers, and so I think we need to bear that in mind as we all work together to create this early childhood system. Because it's not just about creating support and services for families and children 0 through 5. It's also about removing barriers.
Okay. Christina.
Oh, okay, awesome. Good morning, everyone. It's a little nervous, excuse me.
That's all right. Let it out.
So, just repeat the question.
The
for me
most
one more time.
striking takeaways from the gap analysis.
So when I was reading the gap analysis, I could definitely say what was startling to me was just looking at the numbers and looking at the huge gaps in early childhood, especially for 3-year-olds that need access to preschool. Thinking about families and thinking about making sure that our kids are ready for kindergarten and really understanding what that looks like. And I know that there has been a push to educate our children and really allow for them to have 2 years of education or 2 years of preschool before entering kindergarten, and really understanding what this early childhood world looks like and what kindergarten readiness looks like and how different that looks now than it looked years in prior years. And so that was kind of startling to me, and it really hits home when I think about the families that are most impacted, and I think about the communities of color, and oftentimes those are the communities that are most impacted by these gaps. So I think it's an eye-opening report. I think it's something that we definitely can work towards achieving better outcomes as a community and as a whole. And also looking at the number of families that are living in poverty and what that looks like. But also, just gonna breathe. I'm sorry, I'm normally not nervous at all, and
You're doing great.
always have something
You're
to
doing
say.
great. Well, tell us, come on.
I know it. But it was also good to see some of the efforts that are moving forward and that are going forth to make sure that we are bridging those gaps. Even looking at the fact that 4-year-old preschool, we were able to serve a lot more families. I believe it was almost all of the families in Kent County, and that was definitely a huge leap, I know, from the previous years. Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Yay. Good job. Anissa?
So when looking at the gap analysis, I think it's definitely striking just to see some of our progress and recognizing that it was grounded in a community plan, and that in and of itself is a real positive that we have of coming together and setting these goals to work towards. I think some of the things that really stuck out to me as takeaways was looking at the childcare cost with an average of $8,000 per year per child, and recognizing that once you hit about that $32,000 mark for a family of 4 as far as your income, that you're not eligible for any kind of assistance or subsidy. And I just feel like that leaves families with making impossible decisions, and that it just cascades into so many other things. That's not the place that you want to sacrifice when you're looking at how you're going to use your budget and how you're going to spend your money. You might go for the off-name brand pasta or something like that, but when it comes to your childcare, you want it to be quality, and it's not a place that you want to sell short. So I think, and I've even experienced in my own family and home where you're saying, okay, well, I think I can't do the full-time schedule right now because I have this many children that are under 5, and so needing to take away different opportunities and then take away sources of income, and it just kind of gets bad from there. So I'm really glad that this is something that is being looked at as far as one of the gaps, because the cost of quality childcare compared to our average income just doesn't add up at all, and it's not something that's fair to families, and it's definitely not good for our children. Another gap that stood out to me was with health insurance. I think it's exciting that we have one of the best programs in Michigan when it comes to giving quality access to healthcare for our children, but definitely also disappointing that so many children don't have access. I think it was saying that when we look at these services, if you just insured all of the children that have Medicaid and children that are uninsured, you're going up by 12,000 children in our community. And that's really significant, especially recognizing that your health is going to allow you to have that foundation for learning and growth in so many other areas. The last thing I'd mention for a takeaway is so many of the gains that we have made are attached to funding that isn't necessarily sustainable. And I think that's something that could sneak up on us as a community, where we could go backwards really quickly just with that one grant that doesn't come through, or the one source of funding that you thought was going to be there that's not. So thinking about sustainable funding, thinking about dedicated funding, what does that look like to make sure that not only do we keep addressing these gaps, but we don't lose the good work and progress that we've already made.
Okay. Good. So now that we've been discussing about what's struck us most in this gap, how would you address the inequities in the early childhood system? Anissa, why don't you keep going there?
Sure. I think when you're talking about addressing the inequities in the system, the place to start is understanding where they are and what they are. And I've been impressed by how far this community has come when we're getting to the point of looking underneath data, not just looking at that high-level number, but disaggregating to say, what does that mean when you break it down by race, by income, by disability status, even by geography, down to zip codes. And that's where you can, to understand where those disparities are, then allow you to target your strategies so much more effectively. And that's happening more and more, and I'd like to just continue to encourage the community to go further with that. And then taking that learning, not just to say, okay, this is what the breakdown is, but recognizing that now needs to inform how we move forward. And what that looks like often is not the same as equality. And sometimes that's a really hard thing for us to grapple with and for us to understand. But when we look closely at the gaps and we recognize different populations or groups or even individuals that are situated in different places, we have to interact with them differently to get to the universal goal that we want for all of our children to be successful and thrive. One of the examples that I think of when I'm trying to help people understand what this looks like is even my own children. You saw a brief picture a few minutes ago. I have 3 boys. I love them all the same. I don't have a favorite. And I want all of them, all 3 of them, to thrive, to succeed. Just even, for example, when you look at school and their education. And I have one, my middle little guy, that he's coming to education with a bit of a different set of needs. And so for me to get all 3 of them to that goal of being successful in school, the way that I address things with him looks different. We can't just have parent-teacher conferences. We have additional meetings, we have additional supports. And not only does that take some of my time in a different way, but it's also required the structure of the school to adjust. When looking at his specific needs and how he's coming to that system, they have been wonderful in accommodating and supporting what he needs to meet those goals. It doesn't mean that I don't care about all my kids. It doesn't mean that I don't love all my kids or want all of them to succeed, but I do have to approach it differently based on those needs. And when we're talking about equity, sometimes that it looks different in how you organize your resources and your investments and the way you spend your time, but that is what allows all children to thrive and succeed. Sometimes that's on the individual family level, and sometimes it's on the structure. When you see something like, for example, a community of color that's maybe not utilizing a parent education service as much as you'd want to, and they recognize a need there, it's not always the question of, okay, how do we get more transportation or how do we get more access? Sometimes it's something like, how do we change the curriculum content? How do we look at why maybe a certain group or certain families are not receiving this service or taking advantage of it in the way that we would hope? So I think those are some of the things that you can use to get to the equity and looking at the disparities.
Okay. Christina, how do we address the inequities in early childhood?
Well, Anissa kind of took most of my answers. It's like, was she reading my notes? No, that's okay. But no, thinking about, and from my perspective, my first child was Daniel, that you've seen a picture of earlier. And so being a mother of a child with a special need, and he was born with cerebral palsy and diagnosed at 2 months. So for me, I was I kind of describe it as being thrown into a world of unknowns. And really kind of having access to early on services very early on, pun intended. And that was very helpful for me. So I think as a parent, and then being as a young parent, really having access to the services and resources that are within the community, knowing what they are, making sure that they are accessible and marketed to the people that actually need the services. Would definitely be one way to help bridge that gap, making sure that we're partnering with parents. And I thoroughly advocate for that because I think that's very important, not only for the purpose of us connecting to resources within the community, but also being able to give voice to the services that are being provided, making sure that when we are planning and creating these services, that we're also including that parent voice to make sure that all things are being thought of. Oftentimes when you're at that table and you have your job that you're thinking about, you're coming there with that hat on. And so you leave that parent hat at home. And so it's important to make sure that you do have that community and have families at the table that are also going to be there helping to make those decisions that are going to be serving our families. And so our input is definitely important. And I think it's often forgot or not a top priority. So making sure that we're keeping in mind that people need to be first, our children need to be first, and meeting people where they are is definitely a way to be able to bridge that gap as well. I spoke briefly about the parent partnership, but I think also that's very important as Anissa was talking about in the schools. It's very important that we help parents early on understand the value and importance of being engaged and being their child's first teacher and their child's voice, and really understanding what that means. And again, for me, one of my sons is nonverbal. And so really being able to understand and sit down and get it, it's a lot. And for me personally, most of my friends had kids that are older than mine. So I'm having children and their kids are like graduating high school. And so it was kind of very new for me to be a mom and then again being thrown into this world. And so I was blessed to be able to have advocates and individuals coming to my home. So I did utilize also home visiting services, and having that helped me tremendously, helped me to build up my level of confidence, helped me to build up my skill set as a parent, helped me to now be able to be involved on the system side, to be able to understand both sides of the table. And so now I kind of feel charged to be able to go back out in the community and give back what has been given to me to help me through my journey. And I just think that that's going to be key and important for all parents. And that's what I have.
All right. That's great. Okay, Lou, so how do we address these inequities in early childhood?
Well, I think I spoke to that earlier. I think we got out of order just a little bit at the beginning, and when I talked about removing the barriers and so on and so forth. But let me go, and I fully support everything that Christina and Anissa have said on that topic. Let me just go back and give a little plug for the gap analysis. This document is remarkable in my view. It's the result of just an awful lot of work, and I want to salute everybody, Amy Turner and others who have worked on this and put this gap analysis together. You know, there have been a lot of great people working on these issues of early childhood for here in our community for many, many years. Dare I say decades and decades. Volunteers and parents and advocates and service providers, folks from the public sector. But you can't really get to your destination unless you know where you're going and how you're going to get there. And that's what this gap analysis does for us. It really lays it out. It shows us, it takes that community vision that we talked about earlier, that Kate talked about, and it measures it against where we are now on the ground, the state of early childhood as we sit here today. And it really illustrates where the gaps are and how far we have to go. And what it allows us to do now is to focus our efforts on those gaps. And we can, I mean, let's face it, the gaps as they are significant. And we're not going to overcome them overnight. We're not going to get them with one swing of the bat, so to speak. But if we keep chipping away, we know where they are. If we keep chipping away at them, eventually they're going to disappear. And we're going to have the early childhood system that we have been striving for so many years. So I just wanted to get that in.
That's great. Get it in. No problem. Before we go to the next question, I just want to remind you to write your questions down. After this, we'll be collecting some of your questions for the panelists. At least it'll spur that discussion. But I'd like to address this question right now. First to you, Christina. So we know there's a gap. We know what we need to hopefully do to maybe bridge that inequities there. But what do you envision for the early childhood system in Kent County? And, you know, what will it take to get there for our future vision?
That's a great question. Some of the things that I've noted, so that I can make sure I get all of my points in. Definitely, I would say what I would hope the early childhood system would look like in the future is a system that is accessible by all, equal access to quality services. And that's in education and equal access to housing and health and all areas that really feed into making sure that you have a healthy whole child. Education is very important, but there are many other factors that pour into making sure that our kids are ready to learn and ready to succeed. And so making sure that we're able to meet families' needs in all areas so that we're not sending our kids to school hungry, making sure that they're fed and so that their mind is ready to be able to learn and really kind of be ready to take in what those educators are there to give them. So I would also say adding free preschool for all 3-year-olds would be a huge help. I think that would be a huge help.
I think you have a lot of support for that.
And I do realize that is probably, I want to say, one of the biggest numbers on the gap analysis, which I believe it came in at about $28 million to be able to fill that gap. And so that is a significant amount of money. And so we want to make sure that we're coming together as a community, business leaders, not just educators, but everyone, because we all have children. If we don't personally have them, we're connected to families, and our family members have children. So it's just very important for all of us to be able to come together, work together collectively, and be able to collaborate our ideas, collaborate, hopefully, our finances, to be able to make sure that we have a tight and solid system that's there and able to meet our families' needs. Also making sure that we are addressing some of the barriers. And to me, one of the greatest barriers is being able to navigate what I call this beast of a system. And that, honestly, and if you look at the gap analysis, and hopefully you guys all will take it home and read through it and look at it and really familiarize yourself with some of the areas that maybe you or your agency would be able to help bridge some of these gaps. But is that navigation piece. That is a huge barrier for families. And that's only, I believe it said $320,000, which was the only one that was in the thousands. All of the rest of the numbers are in the millions. So if we can really kind of address that portion of the gap analysis, I personally feel like it will have impact on all of the other areas. Because if I can't navigate the system, if I'm feeling defeated before I'm even getting started, then I'm not going to access the services. I'm not going to attempt to fill out a 28-page application to try to get funding, or whether it be for childcare, or whether it be for education. I'm going to be frustrated. And if we're not filling those papers out properly, knowing the right things to say or the right answers to put down, then oftentimes we can get denied. And again, that's another thing that may make a family feel defeated. So being able to break down some of those barriers. And I know the report talks also a lot about economic barriers, but really I would charge and hopefully look to the community to really think about some of the systemic barriers that are in place that me personally, I believe cause a lot of the economic barriers for families. One of them being that navigation piece and really being able to have access to those services and knowing where those services are, who to contact, and really how to speak that language to make sure to make sure that they're able to get the things that they need, I think would be very, very important. And also, I would love to see just a heightened awareness around early childhood and the value and importance of investing in our kids earlier. I think that's just very important, as the research shows, that our kids' minds developed the most between ages birth to 3. So that is that age to really be pouring into our kids, to really be talking to them, making sure that we're exposing them to language, reading to them, understanding really that what school readiness looks like and how us as parents can better equip our kids, and really being able to go out there, advocate for them, and losing my train of thought, come back. Being able to really go out there and advocate for our kids so that we can really maximize their potential and tap into their gifts and talents that they have. And you know, I would be, I feel I would be out of line if I don't advocate and say some words about early on services. Because as a mother that used early on services, I know that that is probably one of the most underfunded resources that we have, not just here in Kent County, but throughout the state, and I would probably even go as far as to say throughout the nation. And early on is a program that serves our kids that have disabilities. And so if we're able to catch that early, like I was blessed to be able to catch it at 2 months, so we started therapy early. We started, you know, I started as a mom doing that research earlier on, so that when school time came, I felt equipped, I felt ready, I felt that I would have the skill set and the ability to go in and advocate for my child when knowing what an IEP is and those different things. I think that's very, very important. We have families that are going to schools that are getting IEPs and that are just there. They're not really, they're kind of being voluntold, right? What it is that they're gonna be doing, and not properly knowing how to advocate for themselves or their child. So it is very, very important that we continue to support early childhood education in all aspects, and making sure that we have families that are equipped, not just the child, but thinking about the whole family unit and making sure that we're building up strong families. That's gonna be important. Because if the parent isn't strong, you can do all of the work out in the field, but the kids are at home the most. So we need to make sure that we're also bridging that gap as well.
Okay. So Anissa, what do you envision, and how do we get there?
Thank you. Yes, I think what I envision really when I think about the future of the early childhood system and what it could be and what I hope it would be is really just that name specifically, that it be a cohesive, connected, and coordinated system. And I think we've been making strides to get there. I have the privilege in my work through K-Connect to be thinking about prenatal all the way to early career. And when I look at some of the work that we're doing in the high school to career space, or the work that we're partnering with in terms of the 4th through 12th grade space, there is a bit more definition and structure within those systems. And some of it does have a foundation in the academic setting or the employment setting. And when you get to early childhood, we have so many pieces that are pouring into these first 5 years of life. And we have an opportunity to set the stage for these systems that come later to recognize the whole child aspect, because that's what early childhood does. It's not just about the classroom, it's not just about the home, it's not just about the health. Those pieces are important in every stage of the system, but early childhood is working so actively in so many different spheres that impact a child's life. And I think that is a blessing, but it's always also a challenge, because we don't have kind of this defined structure that's over the whole thing that helps us be connected. So we have to create that for ourselves. And I really think that's where we're going to start to see this come together in a better way. I don't know if anybody goes to the Children's Museum at all. We have an amazing Children's Museum here. But I was there a while back with my boys, and they had an activity where it was a bunch of different little tubes. And you put a ball in the tubes, and they would go through, and then they would fall on the floor. And they'd have to look and see where was the tube missing, and how do we have to set it up, and keep putting it together, all these different pieces, so it could get all the way through and get to the end. And I think about that kind of example with our system, that we're all representing those little pieces, but where is it falling out? Where do we have to just kind of align it up a little bit more, or make sure that we're under a little bit differently so that we can have that cohesion? And I think that that's where we're going to find our strides in this system, because we all have the pieces that are necessary, but it's about how we put them together. Kent County is resource rich in a lot of ways. We have a lot of people and organizations and programs that care about this and want to invest. And I just hope that we don't squander that we learn from our successes, but we also talk to each other. When that ball falls out, don't just use that in-house as your own information, but learn from those failings together so that we can connect better and have this be a coordinated effort where it's not fragmented, so that when a family has a need, you can meet it in your own structure, but you can also directly connect it to whatever other structure is a part of this system, so that everybody can thrive and have that success together.
Thank you. All right. So Lou, what's our vision? How do we get there?
Well, my vision of an effective early childhood system, first and foremost, to go back to something that Anissa mentioned a while ago, is a system that has sustainable funding. And that, you know, we have big gaps that we have to overcome, and sustainable funding is going to be critical. It's going to have to come from a number of sources. Philanthropy will still be important. Public investment, such as we saw the legislature make when they funded the 4-year-old preschool slots. There are some innovative funding techniques that are being piloted here in our community, social impact bonding and so on and so forth. And maybe direct taxpayer support for these kinds of programs. We're gonna have to look everywhere we can, under every rock, for sustainable funding. Secondly, I think an effective early childhood system needs to be one that is evidence-based and has measurable outcomes, so that we can show that we're actually moving the needle. This is really disconcerting, just parenthetically. If you're like me, I actually think I'm 30 years younger than I really am, and to be staring at myself like this, it's a rude awakening.
You look great, Lou. You look great.
Especially this early in the morning. But at any rate, we have to have measurable outcomes so that we can show that we're actually moving the needle. I think that's going to be critical. I think an effective early childhood system is one that is efficient and avoids duplication. Those dollars that we scrape together to provide the sustainable funding, those are precious resources, and we have to spend them efficiently and wisely. I think an effective early childhood system is one that is based on what we know and what we will continue to know about brain architecture, and what we continue to learn about how our children develop. I think an effective early childhood system is one that will support the whole child. This is not just about educational attainment. This is about health, mental health, physical health, dental health. This system has to support the whole child. I think an effective early childhood system is one that will be flexible and adaptable, because as previously discussed, this isn't going to happen overnight. And as we're working on this early childhood system over the next few years, we will undoubtedly encounter changing circumstances, and we need to be able to react to those changing circumstances. An effective system is not a static system. It's going to have to be one that is flexible and adaptable. And really the last thing that I would want to see from an effective early childhood system, and this won't surprise anybody who knows that I've been involved in this for a while, and that's one that provides a return on investment to the community that chooses to make an investment in early childhood. We spend an enormous amount of money doing some of that rework that was mentioned earlier in preschool, or not in preschool, in grade school and in middle school, repeating grades and so on and so forth, and in high school, dealing with high school dropouts. We spend an enormous amount of money on our criminal justice system. We spend an enormous amount of money on drug treatment and enforcement and so on and so forth. And I'm not saying that an early childhood system is going to simply wipe all that away, but I'm telling you, I'm convinced that if we invest early when we can have the greatest impact, we can have a huge impact on the amount of money that we're spending down the line. It's sort of a business approach. It just makes sense to invest early when you can have the greatest impact and save those dollars that you preserve by making that early investment. I really do view early childhood as an economic development issue and a workforce development issue. As we discussed, if we make that investment early and these kids arrive at school ready to succeed, healthy and ready to succeed, they're going to go on and become productive members of society, of our community. And they're going to become part of a productive workforce. And that floats all of our boats. The economic benefits that come from that will come back to our community in so many different ways. So, you know, I've said this a million times, but I view early childhood investment as not only the right thing to do for our kids, because let's face it, it is the right thing to do for our kids, but it's also the smart thing to do for our community. So that's my view.
All right, thank you. We have a lot of questions that are coming in, and I want to try to get maybe to all of them if we can, so I might not ask all of you to answer every question, but Lou, this is kind of great transition because it almost follows what you were just sharing with us in terms of, here is the question in the comments. West Michigan is taking care of its own, not waiting for the federal or state government to solve our problems, but the public sector, like all of us, have a role to play. What can we do as a county to help address this gap? Can you identify best steps for like business, employers, government?
Well, yeah, I think this is something, I think it's really important, particularly that the business community be involved. And I think the business community is getting involved. I work with Mike on Talent 2025, and we have an early childhood working group. And I know Sean Welch is here, and he co-chairs that working group with me, along with Milt Rohr and Bruce Loss. And definitely getting the business community involved is important because as I mentioned, it's a workforce development issue, and I think the business community can also be a really important advocate. I think, as I mentioned, in terms of sustainable funding, there's a lot of different sources. There may be parts of this gap analysis that are best attacked, quite frankly, for instance, by the state legislature. Okay, and I think the business community can help advocate for that. But I think that there are other parts of the gap analysis that can be attacked through social impact bonding. And I think the business community can get behind that as well. So I think getting the business community involved is going to be really key.
Okay, thank you. Christina, why don't you tackle this one? How do we change people's mindsets so that this goes from being a nice thing to do to a must do? How do we communicate that?
I would say just continue to get the word out there. Continue to do studies such as this gap analysis so that people really can look at the numbers and really see where those gaps are, how it is personally impacting us. I think that that's going to make a huge difference when people are able to see and really identify with those gaps, that they are personally impacted by them. And not just getting the message out in one way, but getting the message out in multiple forms so that it's hitting all audiences. You have your business professionals, you have your parents, and then you have different levels even within your professionals as well as your parents. So making sure that you're getting that message out to reach all audiences, and just really continuing to push and strive for better funding, really thinking about, I have my little quote here, and I said, oh, I didn't say that. But if we think about supporting early childhood, it's like really, literally like the gift that keeps on giving, because we're starting early and the kids are going to continue to grow and continue to flourish. So it would be a great return on investment. Because our kids are going to grow up and they're going to be strong and we're going to have a strong community, and that's what we need. Our kids are going to be taking care of us one day, and they're going to be the ones that are in these spaces and places. So we want to make sure that we're building up strong leaders, starting very young, and building those skills within them, and just getting that message out. Again, utilizing those parents and getting that message out there. The parents are on the feet, they're on the ground. And so they're also the ones. So making sure that we're including them, but also using them, or using us, I should say, to be able to go out there and spread the word. I often say little people love little people. But parents also receive messages better, I guess I should say, when it comes from another parent, when it comes from someone that's actually utilizing those services and benefiting from them. So just getting them out there and making sure that we're tapping into all markets, and not just health, but also like your faith-based communities, because that's going to be one of your most trusted sources within the community. So making sure we're partnering with the right folks and having the right people at the table and having the very intentional discussions. And sometimes it's going to be a challenging discussion or something that may be uncomfortable, but we don't grow if we're comfortable. We only grow outside of our comfort zone. So getting in those uncomfortable spaces and having those uncomfortable conversations and being really intentional about moving the needle and what it's going to take to move the needle and move it so that it's affecting everyone and not just pockets or silos of individuals.
Okay. Anissa, here's one I want to follow up with you on. How might technology help address barriers, inequities, and access? Any research on like viral home visits or follow-ups on how does, we all have our smartphone today. We were all communicating and giving our feedback. Do you see any of that entering into some of the support systems?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with really specific research, but I think that it's one of the important questions of recognizing that to be a responsive system, you have to evolve with innovation that's happening around you. And clearly, technology and virtual formats and social media have come into our world and our spaces in much different ways, even when I think about my own childhood and the childhood that my children are experiencing. So I think one of the biggest ways that we can respond to that is by talking to people. So recognizing from parents, even from our young people, what are they using? What is the best way to reach them, to engage them, to connect with them and really partner, and allowing that to be something that we bring forward. And also recognizing that some of that's going to be experimentation. So you have to have a willingness to try something and then recognize if it isn't working and be able to use that information very quickly and then respond differently. I know that there's been some movement in the community around text messages and using actionable messaging that comes right into our phone. For a lot of us, it's an extension of our body. So I think anytime that we can use that, we want to. But then at the same time, also recognizing that that's not going to be for everybody. So having this continuum of opportunities and ways that we engage. Another thing that I've been thinking about more recently is with transportation. We've recognized that as a barrier often to access that can affect lots of different programs and services, even getting to school, things like that. And that's one of the places when you look at maybe our school systems or even connections to getting to medical appointments. We have some some models, right? The school bus, the car, the taxi, that when we look at transportation and how it's evolving in our community and the different technology that's present now, we can think bigger than that. We can think broader than that. I think we have to be responsive to innovations and advancements and recognize that they may be able to infuse our current system or at least partner alongside of it to help us grow and expand our access to things that are needed.
Okay. Here's something is open to whoever on the panel wants to address this. How important is it to see people who look like you in the field, the office, when you receive services? You know, as a community, we seek to address the gaps in early childhood. Are we seeking to prepare the workers for working with all families? You know, are we looking at this too?
I think that's critically important. And I think that's one of those areas where then you can find a space for so many different sectors to be involved. It's often unspoken, but very much felt when you walk into a space or you enter into a service and you don't see anybody that looks like you. There's an automatic assumption of not belonging or an automatic hesitancy of trust. And am I going to be understood here or received well here? So that comes into the way that we do our training and our professional development for service providers in a way that is culturally responsive and having some of our own internal reflection on our own intercultural development. But I also think that's a place for something like the business community to come alongside and say, what are we doing to make sure that our places of employment are ready to receive diverse candidates that come from different backgrounds and perspectives, and not only get them through the door, but retain them so that they can be this face to our community and the people that we serve. And it also goes into our institutions of higher education and even going into high school, middle school, all the way down. How are we helping students to see different pathways to fields that might not be in their immediate radar? And how are we helping to make pathways accessible so that the pipeline can allow for that diversity, and then the employers can be ready to receive that so that when you go into a place, you can find that connection for someone that looks like you or has a shared cultural experience that's accessible.
Somebody else want to address that?
That was another one of my bullet points, so everybody's all in my notes today.
All right.
But I definitely think, thank you. I definitely think it is important that we do have a workforce that mirrors our community. And it just takes me back, or it makes me think about home visiting and having individuals come into your home. And so I serve on a number of home visiting committees and the local leadership group for home visiting here in Kent County. And so that's one of the things that's talked about when you have families that are turning around or families that are not engaging. And when we talk to those home visitors, one of the things that they say, and one of the things that I know personally, it is important that we do have individuals that look like us, that can speak our language. And I think that would help to bridge the gap with some of the cultural barriers, and really just thinking about relationship building. I mean, we grow through relationship building and building rapport with individuals. And so, you know, if I have someone that can speak my language or that I can relate to, and that you're going to be able to give me information that's going to resonate with me, and that I'm going to be able to receive that better, I just think it's also a smart move. Also would be a return on investment as well, because you're going to have people that are going to be utilizing their services and hopefully using them more effectively. You're going to hopefully be able to increase job opportunities for families that actually need them. And I was going to piggyback on the whole relationship piece. I do just want to reiterate that relationship building is very, very important. So we want to make sure that we're able to do that, and that we're building relationships in the right communities with the right people, so that, again, everybody can go out and spread that word and spread that message.
Okay. All right, I'm going to move on to the next question here. I don't know if we can answer this, but it's true. Why does free public education start at age 5 if research tells us so much about early brain development? I mean, is that going to take an act of Congress or an act of God, or is
Well, well, I'll say two things about it. Number one, you know, this is a concept that developed historically. I mean, you know, over hundreds of years. So it's not surprising that's where it is now. a lot of what we've learned about brain architecture and early childhood are things that we've learned in the last 20 years, shall we say. And so I think 20, 30 years. And so I think this kind of information is just now permeating our society. And I think you're starting to see it. You know, nationwide, people are starting to understand and talk about early childhood. I think you're starting to see that our society is beginning to understand that it really shouldn't start at 5, that it really starts a lot earlier. But we've got to overcome, 200 years of an approach to public education, and that isn't going to happen overnight.
I'm going to move on here, try to get some of these last ones in. In Spotlight, highlighted data regarding math proficiency for African American children in the state to rank last. Do we have any county level data which shows a similar disparity? And what can we do as early childhood system to address racial inequities specifically?
That's above my pay grade. I don't know exactly the data on that. I don't know if we have that data or not.
Okay.
I don't know if either of you guys have a comment.
Sure, yeah, so for K-Connect, there is a county level data dashboard that you can really think about as our community report card, where anyone it's publicly available, you can check in on lots of different data points for how our community is doing. And one of the areas that's tracked in there is 8th grade math. But if you look along any of the different data points that we have at the county level, and then you can go to more of the local school district level and even the building level, you're seeing about a 20 to 40% gap when you look at race and ethnicity between our white population and our communities of color, especially Black and Hispanic. And so I think that we see that mirrored from what we're learning that's happening at the state level and even across the country. And that's where it becomes important to take the next step. We see it, we know it, it's not something that's new, but what do we have to do differently to start to close that, recognizing that it's not just about the standardized test score, but it's about how our young people being prepared for their next step in career and their pathway toward economic prosperity. So as I said earlier, oftentimes that means that we have to invest differently and invest in a targeted way and provide those extra supports not only to families and individuals, but also look back at our systems and structures to see what needs to happen internally to be able to better support the education and close those gaps, because they're certainly not just on a state level, but something that we have right here in our community.
I'm going to ask something for all of you to sort of wrap up this discussion here. So if you take a look at how will the funding gap, need versus supply, be affected perhaps in the foreseeable trends in the next 5 years? You know, we hear about demographic changes, economic cycles, philanthropic investment flows, political contests. I know we don't have a crystal ball, but if we kind of see what's happening in our communities, do we see maybe any major green lights or red lights? All of you can answer this one.
Well, I'm an optimistic guy.
All right.
I see green lights all over the place. And mostly it has to do with the fact that this is an issue that the community is really coming to grips with. And I go back to the gap analysis, all the work that went into the gap analysis, the fact that we have that as our roadmap, that tells me that this is a community that's willing to take the next step. I think what we need to do is we need to continue to do what Christina said, which is to spread the word. We need just not the folks in this room, because I suspect we're preaching to the choir here a little bit. It's not just the folks in this room, but we need everybody in this community to understand the importance of early childhood and the benefits that investing in early childhood can bring to our community and specifically to them. So I think if we could continue to spread the word, I see nothing but green lights.
All right.
I'm going to semi-echo.
All right.
Okay. I mean, I definitely see some challenges and definitely see some barriers, but I am excited to be able to, like Lou said, that we're having this conversation, that the gap analysis even exists. And so that shows that there's a need, that shows that there's a community that cares about our children and our early childhood community. And so really just being able to have that conversation, continuing to push that conversation, I think is just gonna do nothing but continue to open doors, hopefully, and open hearts. And hopefully open the pockets of some of the funders that are gonna be able to help sustain some of these programs, because they're gonna continue to see the value and importance of making sure that we're building up leaders that are ready to go out into the community and ready to just continue to build our community and thrive. And it's gonna take a collective effort. So I think we're on our way.
Okay.
I think that this is really where the benefit of working together as a cohesive local system comes into play. So many of the things that Eva mentioned are not in our control. The political climate, the kind of changing buzzword that is now driving maybe investment on a national level or a change in federal policy. Those things are gonna happen. They're gonna ebb and flow. There's gonna be a hot topic that has a lot of attention, and then something else that's maybe being neglected. And I think if we are working together as a system, we can be much more responsive to those changes when they happen, not only to be able to look at what we're doing and see how it aligns to maybe something that's happening on a national scale that's really growing in momentum and popularity, but also when we lose something, maybe from a national scale or even at the state level, that we're connected enough to say, how are we gonna be flexible to adjust and fill that gap in and of ourselves? And the more connected and less fragmented that we are, I think the more we can troubleshoot together to see what's going to be needed. That we don't wanna shift our priorities and our values just based on what's happening in the climate and atmosphere around us, but we want to hold true to those and then find alternate ways to get to them as this connected system that we're building.
Okay. Want to thank our panelists. Thank you all so much, Anissa, Christina, and Lou. We really appreciate you being with us today and, sharing your thoughts and mostly importantly, your passions. We can see that of the gap analysis and the community vision for early childhood in Kent County. We also want to thank you. We've got, this was great, lots of questions, and we will follow up with all the answers that were submitted, even if we didn't get a chance to have them discussed openly here this morning. I was also just notified too that, I told you we were live streaming. There's 1,200 people following us on that live stream right now. So, hello out there. This is definitely something that I think our community can relate to. You guys may step down. Thank you so much. All right, folks, bring out your phones. We got another quick poll to do right here. So open it up to your polling app, and we'll get to that first question. Here we go. The pillars of the community plan for early childhood in Kent County are parenting, education, and family support, health, early learning, and system support. Do you agree that these pillars are a priority for the early childhood system in Kent County? There you have your choices. And see what everybody thinks. Okay, wow. Okay. More than 80% of the room. Excellent. Still coming in. Oh, a couple of disagrees. Okay. Looks like it's about it. Very good. Let's try our next question. We'd like to hear your perspective on what is the most compelling case for funding and support for early childhood in Kent County. So please rank these options. Again, remember, put your finger on the three little lines and rank them in the order. It's hard. They're all important. I don't know. Still flipping around. All right. First, second, third, fourth, fifth. We have there at the top, every child deserves an equal chance to be successful and develop to their full potential. It's our responsibility to ensure our youngest kids have access to quality programs. Third, quality programs results in kids that are ready for kindergarten. Fourth, there's a tie now for second. Nurturing relationships build a strong foundation for health and development. And fifth, all parents have questions and need help from time to time. All right. Good ranking. Thank you very much. And let's go on to just the last question here. We know there is a significant return on investment when we adequately fund early childhood. What do you think is the most compelling reason to invest early in Kent County? Again, please rank these. Yes, I know. It's hard to rank these, but again, think about it. As you try to share why people need to invest, these are all. Yeah, this is another one that's tough. Okay, it looks like they're settling in on that first one. Investment in early childhood costs our community less over time. We've heard that discussion. The second, reduces resources needed later for local school districts. Third, early detection saves on costly health care. And fourth, key to attracting and retaining families and talent in West Michigan. That's pretty solid there. You're right, all of the above. They're all really good. Okay. So at this point in time, I'd like to introduce Ana Maria Valdez, President and CEO of First Steps.
Thanks, everyone. Just like you, we are deeply concerned about the gaps, especially for children, the youngest in our community. We're listening to stakeholders, community leaders, and the public as we consider the best way to ensure adequate, stable funding so that every young child in Kent County will enter kindergarten healthy and ready to succeed in school and life. We're doing great things in West Michigan, and now we have an opportunity to ensure all Kent County children and their families have access to early childhood support and services so we can continue to build on that success story. We need to come together as a community to ensure adequate funding and support for quality early childhood programs and services. So we're asking for you to commit to doing the following. Read and share the Refocus report. Start a conversation, share the video, follow First Steps on social media. And, you know, I'd like to invite you all to an upcoming event. The Ready by 5 conference will be held on April 26th, 2018 at the Eberhard Center. And you can find out more info on our website. So everything we shared today will be up on our website today for you to start pushing this work forward. In a few days, you'll be sent an email with a survey about today's event. We appreciate any feedback you can give us. We will share with you our notes from the community discussion and details on future opportunities to stay involved in the early childhood work. I want to thank all the funders, steering committee members, speakers, and all who made this event possible. Thank you also to everyone who joined us here today and on the live stream, 1,200 strong, for being part of this important discussion. We have members of the steering committee up on the screen right now, and I just want to thank all of you, and especially the First Steps staff team, Kate Parr in particular. And the last thing I'd like to say is, together we can do better. Thank you.
Okay, that's good work. This concludes the proceedings for this event. Again, thank you for spending your morning with us and discussing the state of early childhood in Kent County. Remember, together we can do better. Have a safe trip wherever you're going.